Why does putting a ring on the other person's finger mean I love you more today than yesterday when you didn't have it on? People are just not getting married anymore. So I want to know what's fueling that trend.
Putting my career basically in the back of my head and putting my relationship in front. No, I don't want that. Now you're closing yourself off to those people because their intentions weren't pure, but you can still have connected in different ways. But now you're not going to deal with that because you're married. But didn't you say, I trust you, but I don't trust the snake?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So now I'm putting myself in the room with the snake.
I'll let you ask the question.
Okay, go.
So let me go.
Go.
Okay, like draining.
Twisting my words.
No. I'm just saying. You did that.
Welcome to the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it really isn't that common. Today's topic, I don't believe in marriage. Now, before I continue on today's topic and get to introduce today's guest, guys, we don't run any ads. We don't charge y'all anything to watch the show. All we ask is that if you enjoy the show, if it made you smile, if it was productive in any type of way, you share with at least 1 to 2 people. It helps us grow authentically, and it goes a long way for the show. So why get married, right? What does it mean to get married? Why does putting a ring on the other person's finger mean I love you more today than yesterday when you didn't have it on? Why does me signing a document solidify the relationship that we already had, right? Why do I need to say vows, right? Words and sentences and kiss you in public in front of hundreds and thousands of people in order to those words to mean anything, right? Why do I need to change my last name in order to prove to you that this is real? These are all very valid questions, and we're going to talk about it today. I don't believe in marriage. So without further ado, Lily, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we got Justin too.
Hey guys.
Justin was feeling a little sick this morning, but it seems like he's doing a little bit better.
I have like a very sober sick voice.
Sober sick.
Yeah, so this is my sober sick voice.
Okay.
Still feel like poop, but we'll make it work, right?
Yeah, and you got the next day and a half maybe off.
Exactly.
That's good to recover. But Lily, thanks for hopping on the show. What do you do? What are you doing now? I want to discuss you a little bit. I know you're doing some
I do photography.
photography. So guys, really quickly, Lily has a little side business going on where she does photography and she's selling. If you are interested, on Twitter, right?
Instagram as well.
Instagram and Twitter, Maad.Media, MAAD, period?
Yeah.
Media. So go check her out. Also, the links will be in the description. You can check out all of her photography stuff. It's pretty cool to see her stories too. She's always going to concerts and stuff like that. So go check her out.
Yeah, mainly.
Okay.
I'm mainly
That he just broke.
that he's now gonna buy. No,
Right.
I'm just kidding. I mainly do concert-based photography, but I have done weddings and like baby photos.
She's done weddings.
Family.
Ironic.
Very
I'm
ironic.
just kidding.
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because I wanted you on the last palette where we talked about should married men have female friends, right? That was a very interesting one. If you haven't seen it, guys, I'm gonna leave the card right up top, but watch it after you finish this show. So I invited you on, and you're like, I really don't have a say in it because I don't think I'm gonna get married, or I don't plan on getting married. So I was like, whoa, good topic. Let's get you on the next one.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where this topic kind of strung. I don't believe in marriage, or I don't believe in getting married. So you want to get into personal about that, or let me put some stats on there before we get personal. So these are some marriage stats that I looked up. So marriage has been decreasing since the 1980s, right? Where it peaked at 2.5 million a year versus now it's only 2 million a year, which is crazy because when I read that, I was like, okay, so it's about 0.5 million less, and that's because population's also increasing, right? Thanks to our co-director, we know how many people are in the United States.
God.
331 million as of 2021.
No. He said billion.
Yeah, he said billion, but it's actually million. So 331 million versus in the 1985's population was literally 100 million below that. So it's crazy to think that people are just not getting married anymore. Like if we look at that stat, it's going low every single year. So I want to know what's fueling that trend. Is it? I feel personally like it's like this woke thing. Like, oh, why should I get married? It's just so much to handle, and for what? Just to prove that I love you. I can prove to you that without getting married.
Yeah.
So is that where you stand? Where do you stand as far as like marriage goes, and why you personally feel like it's not even?
I mean, I don't think that not that everybody should not get married. I think personally for me, I don't choose to get married because I just feel that I just want to focus on myself more. And marriage is like a real big compromise.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go into marriage for the wrong reasons, like for money and like all that other stuff. And it's like, I don't know, like how do you even see it working out from there if that's where you're starting off?
Yeah,
And
for
like
sure.
I also like it's just easier being loved than loving somebody. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so being loved is the easy part where you're receiving all the gifts and stuff, and then loving someone is when you're like trying, like loving them for who they are and stuff like that. And you also have to like, you have expectations going to marriage and like relationship and stuff, and you need to like diminish that because it's not always going to be how you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I think just people need to be more mentally mature if they do decide to get married and know what it is they're really getting into.
Okay, that's a first statement.
Yeah, that's a very good statement.
So do you think that that's something that is that something that you've adopted recently, or is that something that you've always known since like let's say high school, middle school? Like, oh, I don't want to get married.
Yeah, I always kind of knew I didn't want to get married, and then people just like, oh, you're gonna change like when you get older and stuff. And then I don't know, I just felt like I learned more, and then it just led me more to like not wanting to get married at all.
Yeah.
When you said learned more, what did you learn more of?
Like just not having like not living with attachments and stuff, like letting everybody just be who they want to be because everybody can change like kind of daily and stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
People change
And it's
through the
just it's
seasons.
just a lot to be putting on one person, the expectation of you have to love me every day.
Yeah. That is a big expectation,
Mhm.
but without it, it can be dangerous too.
Yeah.
So, you have any questions for so far?
A trillion. I'm trying to scramble through.
You're trying to scramble
Yeah, so
through.
good, you go for it.
Okay, so I kind of want to get a little personal here.
Okay.
Your parents are married, right?
Yes.
How would you imagine your parents if they were divorced, let's say a decade ago? Do you think your life would have been a lot different? Let's just say in your middle school years, and the pinnacle of like you growing up and maturing.
Mhm.
Do you think your life would have been completely different?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So that kind of proves a point to me because personally I do think that marriage is a big deal and I think it's very important and that it must come to that point if you want to solidify, especially when children are involved, because if it is so easy just to split up, let's say my wife and I have children and then if I'm reacting based off of emotion, let's say my child is in middle school or in high school and they really need me in that time, but I'm like, I'm not really feeling this right now, right? I'm not married. I can easily just step away. Now, if I'm married, I've committed to a constitution that's bigger than just me. It's bigger than just my emotions. It's bigger than just her emotions. Whether I change or I don't change, it's more of a commitment of, listen, we sat down and we said that we were gonna love each other till death do us part, and it's just a lot bigger than us, right? It's a lot. We have people.
It's a sacrifice.
Exactly, it's a sacrifice, and I feel like that's where people that don't really believe in marriage, that's what they don't like, that sacrifice. They don't like that commitment. They don't like that chain holding them down. So just to be clear, I'm not gonna go and try to force anybody to go get married. Like you should get married,
Yeah.
right? That's not my stance. But for me personally, like I've always longed for marriage, like since I was a little boy. So because when I was a kid and my parents were married, they're divorced now. That was like I was so happy. And when they divorced, it broke me. It tore me. I was diagnosed with separation anxiety. I had trouble in school. I had trouble getting friends. And I really feel that like if that played out different and if they were maybe a little bit more committed and they worked through their struggles, maybe, I mean, I'm grateful for my life now.
Yeah.
It could have possibly been better, or I could have taken a different route. Whatever the case is, I just feel like that constitution is very important because, I mean, let's go back to you. If your parents had gotten divorced, how do you think your life would be now? Do you think?
I think I got a lot of discipline through my dad, so definitely having him there was like beneficial to me. But at the same time, I also feel like I kind of like at one point was like, I think it would be better if you guys just not together. Yeah.
Totally stand by that. I
Yeah.
stand by that. I still.
But
I had
at
that
the
same
same
thought
time,
with
I don't know all of their conversations and problems, so I was just based off of what I was seeing.
Same,
And
yeah.
I'm sure everybody feels like that with other couples. Like whenever they see them, like, they shouldn't be together. But it's not ultimately up to them. But yeah, I mean, it worked out.
It-
It was, yeah.
They seem
doing
happy.
good.
They seem happy now, or
Yeah, I think it's more of a like, well, we've been together for a long time. What's the point? Like, we have a house. You guys are older. Who are we gonna die with? Like, type thing.
yeah.
Just feeling all secret.
All right.
They're gonna be like, what's the...
This is their taxes. He gave me
Their
his social
name,
security the other day. It was just like so weird.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, another thing is why people don't want to get married nowadays is because it's so difficult to get a divorce, right?
And it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Like majority of the money
But
goes.
it's also a lot of money to get married too.
It
A lot
is.
of people, they say a lot of couples go in debt for with their marriage.
I believe that.
That right
I believe
there.
that. Yeah, but the entanglement of marriage and then trying to get divorced is very like nasty. And then when money gets involved, let's say children's involved, but also the money factors there, then that's where the egotistic side of both parents like fighting over money, that can get very ugly for the child
Yeah.
to see. That's where it starts to get nasty. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and that's where I think like people should just take more time to focus on themselves. Like if the normal was to like dream of like how to impact the world versus like, oh, my dream's to get married and stuff. Not to say that that's bad because you did that and you're still now doing this.
That's
like
a fair statement.
yeah,
though.
everybody does it differently. So, but for me personally, I think it would just have to be the route that I'm
No,
taking.
that's a very fair statement, though. But we also have to point out the fact that when it comes to not believing in marriage, your voice was that you specifically wanted to take time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say at the end of you taking time for yourself, and you find someone that you are more than willing to spend the rest of your life with.
I still feel like I wouldn't have to like sign that piece of paper
Sure.
because it just, I feel like it's like putting it in a box type thing.
How
And
so?
not be like, oh, that I want to go mess around or something and not feel guilty. Like, no, I'm like, I'll stay committed and stuff like that. But I'd rather like the person feel like they're choosing me every day versus like, damn, I have to love her
Okay.
tomorrow.
So
Or I have to
that's
love him tomorrow.
and so that's and you took the words out of my mouth. That's the beautiful thing about marriage, is because the butterflies, they go away.
yeah.
The whole, oh my gosh, the happily ever after,
No, yeah.
it goes away.
Mhm.
I've been married, it's going to be 3 years this August, and I can't tell you how many nights, thank you, I can't tell you how many nights I've rolled over out of bed in the morning, goes off, and been like, did I make the right choice? And like that, and that's a thing that all marriage. No. That's
That's
what
deep.
every marriage
Yeah.
goes through. That's what
Yeah,
every marriage
no.
goes through.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I wake up and I choose to love her.
Yeah.
So that I think, from my personal opinion,
Yeah, it's definitely true.
I think, in my personal opinion, I think you have it backwards, because the second that you don't choose the route of commitment, and instead of like, oh my gosh, no, I want it to be free, I want it to like, I want to feel like I'm going to be loved every day. That's the fairy tale, because that person's going to wake up and be like, I'm not married.
No, but that's the thing too. It's like if you choose not to, it's fine. Like now you don't feel like this force of like, well, I have to. Cause I'm
And then you
married
can just
I
break
don't
up, and
wanna
then
get
the
divorced.
conversation and be
Yeah, I
on
don't want to
with
get
it.
divorced because all the paperwork and all the money. And
Yeah.
It's just like, all right,
And then you could just break up.
yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
I wish you luck. I like, I'm obviously gonna be hurt and stuff like that. But I
Okay.
mean,
What if children
not
are
gonna-
involved?
See, I don't want kids either.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just talking. Okay. Well, we also have to keep in mind that there's going to be probably viewers that probably agree with you. Viewers that agree that they like, okay, well, marriage is just a piece of paper. In my personal opinion, the people who believe that just simply just shouldn't get married, and then that just solves the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But what about people who choose not to get married and then turn around and have kids? And then say, oh, it's just easy. Like, I mean, like, we didn't get married, so like, deuces.
Yeah.
You know, because at that point you're no longer committing
Well,
to
no,
each
once-
other, but you're committed to those kids as
Yeah,
well.
to the children.
But
once
it's
you have
just
kids,
gonna-
It's a completely different. It's a completely different.
Right, exactly.
Like,
But I would
it's not-
imagine that's why the statistics of dads walking out of the house and never coming back are probably high, because they don't have that commitment of staying at home. Right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just. This is a guess. I'm
Not
just.
only I think I've seen that, like, they say men change, like, by their 30s they're a completely different person.
Mhm.
So they say that second marriages actually have a higher percentage of lasting.
They actually
Really?
do not.
I actually did some research and
50% of marriages end in divorce. If
Yeah.
They get married the second time. It's an 80%,
80%,
of
yep.
divorce.
that's what I'll have that stat too. That's what I saw.
Sociology.
You took a sociology class?
Yeah, that's how I
Me
know
too.
that stat.
That's like my favorite class in college.
Mhm. That's where I started to like pick up all these stats, and I was like, "Whoa, what?" But we also like went into a deep depth. We took statistics on, so like out of the 50% of marriages that end in divorce, I think like 18 to 20% of that 50 were living together before they even got married,
Gotcha.
and so like 20%. So
yeah,
that's a
and
huge
living
percent.
together too, like, and like some people don't live together until they get married, and that's like
Oh, okay.
people are different, like when they're in their household.
Yeah, you see their dirty laundry,
Yeah.
So here,
so to speak.
no, right.
Yeah.
But here was my argument last podcast, and here's my argument now. I think the rate of divorce is high is because people find their Cinderella or their Prince Charming and then get married.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that pre-marriage, whether they have sex or whether they are living together beforehand, they need to experience each other for a very long time, in my personal opinion, before getting married.
So how long did you experience your wife?
So I was best friends with my wife and dating my wife. I say best friends because we were friends beforehand, and you of my wife beforehand, for a little over 2 years.
Okay.
That's good enough time, I
They,
think.
they say, my mom said it before. She's like, if like a guy like wants to marry you or something, he'll know like within the 2 years that they say that or something like that. And then if it's not after that, then more than likely he's not gonna marry you. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what she
And
said.
Roger and I talked about this, that like people think this way until you meet that person. Mine was 2 years, but I have a very complicated love story.
Mhm.
I knew the day that the first time that her and I hung out that this was the person that I could never ever let go.
Yeah.
Whether I was just gonna like be friends with her the rest of my life, but like at that point I was like, it may not be that realistic.
Yeah.
I probably need to marry this woman for her to be my best friend forever and after. And so like I think that your ideal, like you are in a point in time where you say, I need to focus on me. And that is so healthy. That is a very, very, very good thing. But what if there's someone, I don't know, 2 states away, a guy saying, you know what, I need to focus on me. And you guys focus on each other for 5 or 6 years. And then you guys come together, and you brought up the stat that at the age of 30, men are like calm and they're not as crazy and they don't like to go out and party, like all that stuff. And you meet someone, when both of y'all are 30 and he's ready to calm down and relax and hang out. And then you guys date for 3-4 years. Still no marriage?
As of right
Okay.
now, right?
As of
I
right
mean,
now.
As of
you
right
wouldn't know.
No, I just think it's just being with somebody is like that is also a really big distraction. I have things that like I don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to do this because
You don't want to compromise
like,
your
just-
goals. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna get personal too, because I'm very goal centric. I'm very like, I would not jeopardize, but like I'm very passionate about what I do, right? And so when it comes to my wife, like one thing that we discuss is like when we get married, like one thing that I cannot subside is the things that I'm passionate about. Like if that means I have to compromise that stuff, then it really, we shouldn't get married, and it's not gonna last.
That's all the dating period.
Yeah. So, because for me, like, let's say marriage wasn't, if I didn't get married, and if it was so easy for me to leave, probably would have left by now. Like if it jeopardized my passions, my goals, and like her vision didn't align or didn't support my vision, and like, you know what I mean? That might seem a little bit selfish of me.
No, it's a very serious, like, and very like accurate like a very like understanding statement. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times that while being married, be like, I can't even imagine how easy it would be to walk out right now.
Yeah.
And I know that she's probably thought the same way. But the fact that we've established ourselves into the institution of, not that it's just a piece of paper, but the fact that we are committed and choosing to love that person every day is what makes that difference. That's the difference. And I think that I'm going to go back to you and say, why do you think, so like to you, being married is you're being forced into loving that person every day?
No,
Where-
not
okay.
necessarily you're being forced. Well, I mean, it
Because
can come with the
it was
feeling
because
of, like,
right.
it's like-
It was because you said that I'm just gonna call it out real quick. You said that like I would have to love that person every day.
yeah,
And if I wasn't, then like I would be able to choose to like love that person every day. Where it's, as to us, that's backwards.
Yeah.
You're no longer forced. If you're not married and you're just in a regular relationship, if I woke up the next day and just wasn't feeling it, I'd be like, hey, you know what? This isn't gonna work out. Whereas if in our marriage, I'm not gonna say that we're gonna like our marriage is perfect and we're gonna go off and like, I mean, God forbid anything happens in our marriage, but like we're at least at the understanding of that it's a choice. So to you, what's the opposite attraction? So like what is the difference in like oh well, it's I get to choose to love this person every day if I'm not married.
Are you just scared of a commitment? Do you always want that? I mean, let's be
That
vulnerable.
out,
Yeah. Are you in the
always-
business of having always having that out, always having that escape plan where like, if anything happens, I can just easily just dip and just go live my own life? Is that more attractive to you than having to?
Not necessarily that, because I don't think, like, I've been in relationships and stuff, and I didn't like just bye like the second something came up. So I did work at it and stuff, and then I just realized I needed to do more work on myself, and the other person as well. So obviously, like, it's just
That's crazy because our next topic is self-love.
That is crazy. Okay, so then if that's the case though, why go to marriage and say that marriage is just the piece of paper? So like if you're aware, like, oh, I need to work on myself, and this person needs to work on himself. And
because
like,
my goal
or
is
like
not to end up with somebody. Like, if it happens,
that's
and, like,
fine.
you know. But I'm not
Yeah.
like, I dream about getting married. I dream
Yeah,
about
yeah,
having
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Like, this is something I like low key want.
Right,
like,
right,
no.
right. But we're not really talking about that. I'm not saying that like marriage is your happily ever after.
Yeah,
I 1,000,000% disagree with the happily ever after, because it's not. Marriage is really, 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 really hard. Okay. But like one of the comments that you posted is like was like, yeah, no, like I would agree that like marriage is just a piece of paper. At that point though, like what made you come up with the thought to say, yes, marriage is just a piece of paper? Because at the end of the day, if you recognize that you need to work on yourself, and so did the other person, or like if you get into a relationship and be like, hey, this isn't going well, a lot of people like to use marriage as like the key to solve that, and then it doesn't work out, and then they're shocked or whatever. But why does that lead to that, the fact that marriage is just a piece of paper, instead of just leading up to the point of being like, you know what, the relationships that I've been in is toxic, but marriage itself is still an amazing thing. Like marriage itself is still set to be a foundation of people who are committed to each other. So like what made you go into the
I
mindset
think
of
it's a
that?
beautiful thing for people who really want it. Like, that's why I've
Okay.
done weddings and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like marriage is a beautiful thing, but to you is marriage just a piece of paper?
Yeah. Like, I'm still like,
I feel like for you it's like a perception thing. Like if it means a lot
these
to
are
some
my
person.
views, and I
Yeah.
understand your views, but like I still
Okay.
think this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I'm still like,
Okay.
Which is fair. And the reason why I really wanted to have you on this show is because I want to like dissect that part of you of like, because
Right.
it's trending, like it's growing that people are thinking this way of like it's just not worth getting married, or like that's just not for me. Like
Just
I'd rather
unrealistic,
expectations.
of
Yeah.
marriage.
I mean, I get that. That's where I'm trying to dissect, because I do believe that if it does fall back on a perception thing, like if it does weigh a lot for somebody and that is something that they want to do,
Then they just should not get married.
yeah, well, yeah, they should just not get married. But if it does mean something to someone, then obviously if that's in their desire, they should. How do you deal with social pressure? You don't have any of your family like, hey, when are you gonna get married? Or
Yeah, even my nephew tells me like, yeah, when are you gonna get married and have kids? I'm like, what? Like, I'm still young. What are you talking about? But I don't know. Just
you didn't tell them
just
like, hey, I'm not gonna get married.
yeah, I do. And they're just like, oh, whatever. Like, it's gonna happen. I'm like, no, but okay, we'll just see.
You don't get it from your parents like, hey, Mia, and you gonna
Yeah.
get married?
Yeah, well,
Get out of the house.
already understands too, like how I am. She just thinks I'm weird, but like, she's like, all right,
Well,
whatever.
And what I will say is that is what I am like super appreciative of you is that you're being very open and honest. And there's many people like you that have that mindset who turn around and get married anyway, hoping that the relationship they're in works, and then get divorced, and then it's like, well, like marriage sucks. Like, well, okay, well, no, it definitely. So, like, I think that you're at a very mature level of like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on me, and I'm gonna concentrate on me. Do I think that your mindset's gonna change? I don't know, but what I really appreciate the fact
I'm predicting
is
that. I'm calling it.
Do
So
what?
if it does change ever,
If what changes? Like if
Your
I get
mindset-
married?
your mindset
your
on
perception, I want you to go back to this podcast.
All right.
And
You
just,
need to put
and
it.
then show the person that you're with and be like, can you believe that I thought no, I'm just
No,
kidding.
it better be like on a projection board at the wedding.
Right.
Or like redo
My
their
wedding
own
video,
podcast
cue the
of
video.
yeah,
Cue
that's
the-
funny. Oh no. Or have like both of us marry you guys. That would be
That'd be
classic.
funny. So, I want to talk about we already talked about social pressure. I want to talk about how I feel why marriage is such a good idea, and especially for the people that it does mean a lot to. And I think that it's designed for structure. I think that people need structure because I think we're imperfection, like we're imperfect people,
Yeah.
right? And if we go based off of emotion, it can get very dangerous very quickly. Because if tomorrow I get upset, and again, I'm a very goal centric ego, I would say I'm a little bit egotistic, and I hold a lot of pride in things I want to do. And if, let's say, I don't like my wife the way she is 1 year, right, or one season in her life, and I have that out and I'm able to out, then I would probably do it, right? But since I'm committed to the Constitution of God, that structure that we set before ourselves, I wouldn't do it, and I would see it out. And then, I mean,
So like you need that discipline.
I need that discipline. I need so I'm a man of faith. So in faith it says that marriage is a perfect constitution for two imperfect people. You know what I mean? So that's what I need.
So my saying is marriage works, humans suck.
Okay.
Like
It's
that's it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Like that's why marriage doesn't work out in the end because
Yeah.
people suck. Like there's cheating and there's a bunch of craziness and horribleness that goes on, or just like simply like
And that other thing y'all talked about, keeping someone in the back of your head.
yeah, just something anything like at that
Yeah.
that causes the divorce. It's not the marriage principle itself. It's the fact that there was something
yeah, and
in
like, how
that.
can you just expect somebody like to just be on that all the time?
what?
Like just perfect, like in that way. Like, oh, I'm not gonna think this way. I'm not gonna.
Oh, that's
do
that.
this and
That's
I'm
not.
gonna.
That's not
like,
realistic at all, though.
It's not. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But like,
It's the fact that you work through that,
like
and that you like trust the fact that you have that open communication with this person and be like, hey, you know what? Like I haven't been feeling it with us.
Yeah, because
feel
without
like
the
I
structure,
haven't-
I'd probably be a mess. Like, I'd probably be like, I don't know, like different girl or like
Mar-
out and
mar-
about,
marriage-
my life would probably be very inconsistent. Right? I wouldn't be able to have this podcast if it wasn't for my wife. I wouldn't have been able to do this, honestly, because like she
And
handles.
that's why I said like everybody's different. Like you were able to get married and then start that, and other people were like the other way around. Because not like I just feel like I'd be too distracted.
And not to say that, and not to say that unmarried people can't do this
Oh yeah, for sure.
at all by any means, but at least I can speak for my marriage, is that since being married, the second a temptation comes in on both sides, we communicate it. And they're small, like silly temptations or like whatever. But as soon as we have the trust establishment of having it small, yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I like totally like wanted to go and do some nasty things back there. No, it's
Yeah,
like,
but some people, a lot of people aren't mature enough to have those.
Right. But right, I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, in a marriage, that's what it's generally supposed to be. I don't know if I'm allowed to actually say this, and I'm gonna just go ahead and say this anyway.
We can cut it out of you.
Well, no, I think it'll be fine. But my wife's parents were together for a few years, and my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, found out that her husband was cheating. And instead of being completely justified in walking out, what she did is says, "No, I'm married. I'm going to make this work." And what it says in the Bible is you submit, or not necessarily to the divorce situation is, but what she did is she called him into the living room and she washed his feet to submit to her husband. And that's a huge, beautiful thing. Like, and I know that it's wild to think about, but she was saying like, "No, I'm here to make this work and I forgive you."
Dang, that's intense.
And what? Right.
What's going on?
Right. No. Well, they were living a supposedly biblical lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or
So
just picture that.
he knew what she was doing, you know, like it wasn't
Okay.
no. He knew that they were like living, like he knew immediately what she was trying to do. And so when she was like washing her feet, she was like trying to represent Jesus and saying like, "I forgive you,
Yeah.
like all like it's okay, and I'm here. Let's keep going." And he went ahead and continued to do what he wanted to do anyway. At that point, that is at his fault, and that's him doing what he wants to do. But she played the perfect representation of what marriage is supposed to look like. Is that, and not to say like, I've even made the comment that I don't know if I would be able to get past if my wife cheated. If I like physically saw it happening, or like, you know, if I walked in, you know, whatever, I don't know how I would react. But the way that she did is essentially the ultimate like picture of like what it's supposed to look like. And what ended up happening, they ended up divorced anyway. And so like nobody's perfect. It's not, but at the end of the day, I will still disagree with the fact that marriage is just a piece of paper, because people suck, relationships suck.
Yeah.
So you can be, and she was mature enough to be married.
Yeah. Well,
He
that's what I'm
was
saying.
not, you know?
Like,
So
why
like,
drag yourself through the trauma.
Emotional investment.
right.
Yeah,
Right,
like-
but like nobody's psychic, and nobody
Yeah,
can
but
tell.
so-
Like if let's say, you know, in another world, I'm a female and Roger and I are gonna get married. I can't tell that Roger. We're both 35. I can't tell that Roger is in his like best, at most maturity state of being married, and he can't tell that I'm that way.
No, and there's people that are mature a lot younger.
So how am I gonna depict the fact that like, man, you know what? In 5 years from now, I'm gonna go through hell. But yeah, let's do it anyway. Like nobody can like depict that.
Yeah. So I mean, to be honest, you're kind of like proving to her point. Like it's kind of being counterproductive, because when I'm listening to you, it's like, what if I think that way? I'm like, I'm not gonna get married then.
Right. No. Okay, so I say that all at the end of the day to say is that marriage is a choice. So like
Oh,
if
yeah.
and you
Love-
say like,
love is a
well,
choice.
right. So like, okay, but like if two people who are like, oh well, let's sign the marriage. She was all for the marriage, and at the end of the day, he blamed the divorce for the relationship. He didn't blame the relationship. He blamed the divorce, like the marriage itself. So like when
Wait, he blamed the marriage for
like
the
the
cheating.
problems
yeah.
that they had, and then for them to like justify the cheating, like it's always
Yeah,
going to be a
of course.
cycle.
Yeah, he's trying to.
But what I'm saying is like there should be some sort of like completed cycle within both, and I think that you agree with this, like as far as like both people being like, hey, we're on the same page, let's do this. But if it's not if 10 years from now, those two people,
Don't agree on the same thing.
yeah, and they're not going to.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of if both people are willing to work through that is what's going to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about like cheating, like how you said. I don't know about all that. I don't know if I'd be able to work
I know,
through
that's
that.
why I said
That's
in
some hardcore
her, like,
commitment.
but the only reason you said it was like benefiting her, I'm just saying, like, to see someone individual who was, and it like, it might have counterproductive what I said, but to me it didn't. Reason being is because we had someone who was so committed to their marriage that they were like willing to like drop everything and forgive and like just be like, hey, you know what? It's okay. Like, hey, I'm going to wash your feet. What? Like that, to me, that's the ultimate understatement of like what marriage should be, or the ultimate outstatement of what marriage should be.
Where I found it counterproductive was like they still got divorced.
Right. Because I mean, that had to do with the other person. Right. That had to do with the person who was cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had the person that was like 100% committed, I brought her up to say, this is what it should be like. And believe it or not, it can be like that. And this is someone who is talking like this from whose parents got divorced, separated several months ago. But going back to also what you were saying, like, I looked at my parents and was like, why aren't you guys just separated already?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I could see both sides,
Mm-hmm.
but also like their relationship was toxic from the very beginning. And I can also say with confidence, which brings me back to like not counterproducting, from everything at least that my wife has told me, their relationship was toxic from the beginning. So it always has to do with what starts, like, and what happens up until the marriage point, at least in my opinion, because that's at least what the failure to me was. Like,
so I think my thing is basically people need to have more knowledge on themselves before
1,000,000%.
deciding.
That's a very good statement. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I understand what you're saying because I believe in it. But like, I feel like for the people that are watching, and I feel like for Lily, it's like that already sounds like a bunch of complications. That sounds like a lot to handle.
Yeah.
I just don't want. So I'm somebody who like doesn't want to get married, and I hear that, I'm like, I definitely don't want to get married.
Yeah,
now.
and no, and that's okay, and that's okay. If that's the case, then don't get married, because marriage is messy.
Yeah.
Marriage is messy.
Good point.
Marriage is hard. Marriage is absolutely difficult. I can't tell you how many times that both of us, or only one of us, cried ourselves to sleep at night. It is absolutely so difficult. We have hurt each other. We've been in painful situations, and this is just the beginning. But at the end of the day, I wake up and we're upset at each other, but I'm still choosing to love her. We got into a fight last night, and I mean yelling fight. We were arguing up the wall, but she knew that I was super sick, and not to excuse the way that I was reacting, but I woke up, and the second that I opened up my eyes, she had some water and medicine ready for me. And then I was getting up and getting ready for work, and she was helping me pick up my clothes. And I've done things like that for her, even being super pissed off at her. It's just something like little sacrifices like that you try to get the marriage to work and to keep it flowing.
Sacrifice.
But that's a lot of time and energy.
It is
That's
married, and
like,
if that's the mindset,
yeah.
then just don't get married.
Yeah.
You know. But the second that you know, like, oh, especially, and I'm Lily telling you specifically, with you having this mindset, 10 years from now, when you're like, oh, I think I might get married, you're going to get married. And I tell you what, though, because you spent all that time working on yourself.
Yeah, but see, I don't know if I'll feel that the other person took that time
Right.
with themselves.
Right.
Then why am I just gonna throw all that?
Sure, that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if you still feel that way, that's the conversation you need to have with your spouse or your future spouse, and be like, hey, you know what? I need to make sure that you're on the same page. And if they're like, if you know that, and I mean, if you know that person and you have that conversation after the first year of dating, and then don't get married, and then wait another 3-4 years, and then, have that same conversation with that person 4 years later, if you're still in that relationship, I guarantee you're going to get a different answer. Another thing that you brought up is you say that people change. The statistic is like every 5 to 7 years, the person that you're with has evolved into a completely different person. That's another thing that you have to battle. It's another thing you have to work with.
Well, they say that marriages that work out is because the people are good at teaching. So like the skill of getting an idea from one head to another in a way that is likely to be accepted.
Explain that. What do you mean?
So like, let's say we're disagreeing on something, like or whoever, like your wife, y'all are disagreeing on something. So being able to express yourself in a way that's not gonna be off-putting to her, and like be like, "What are you telling me?" You know.
So something that we learned very early on, and learning from our parents and what not to do, was in an argument. We're human. We're gonna lash out at each other. We're gonna just express it how we feel. If we're angry, I'll yell, she'll yell, or whatever. And we're working on that. But we'll get into it. We'll yell as soon as we're done, and we take the time to cool off. When we come back, I say, okay, how did that make you feel? What made you start feeling that way or whatever? She gets into it. I get into it. And at the end of the day, I have that understanding of how she felt. I have that understanding of how I felt, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And then we apologize. So it always it's growth.
Yeah.
And you can do that not being married.
Yeah.
But I would say that has nothing to do with just marriage being a piece of paper. Go ahead. I see a question coming out.
Yeah. So, another thing I want to ask you is, do you think that you have kind of like a rebellious mindset where like you kind of don't like for people to tell you what to do, you kind of don't like for society to tell you what to do? How do you feel about the idea of like, you're mine and then I'm yours? Does that a big turn off for you?
Yeah, well, see, I've that's the thing, where I've thought that way, and then I've gone in relationships, and then I start to think that way, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to think that way. I don't want you to think that way with me, because that's why I don't even like the idea of boyfriend and girlfriend. Oh, that's his girl, or that's her guy. Nah, dude, that's Lily, that's, whoever, whatever. I'm my own person, and I don't want to be you
just want to be single forever.
I just want to be me.
Well, okay, but isn't that so? If you try to establish a relationship with that mindset, isn't that already set up for failure, though?
Yeah, so I'm not dating.
Oh, I love that though. I love that boldness or honesty.
Yeah, but I feel relationships are very.
You learn a lot about yourself for sure.
Yeah, well, not even just boyfriend girlfriend, not even husband wife, relationships everywhere.
Yeah. So they say you cannot have perfection and company. To be in company with another person is to be negotiating daily imperfection.
Whoa, that was a lot. What?
You cannot have perfection and company. To be in company with another person is to be negotiating daily imperfection. So you're constantly just discussing, trying to again teach, get your view across and have them kind of accept it, but still have their view and so that way y'all can continue communicating.
Right, but you realize you're just explaining a mature relationship though, right?
Yeah, well that's what it means, relationships.
Yeah, so we're talking about relation, in general, not just boyfriend girlfriend.
That whole statement threw me off. I was trying to follow. I could not follow.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked you how you think of the idea of oh, you're mine, I'm yours. People are telling me I have to get married. Society has always taught me that I need to think this way, is because going back to you and your example, which I already written down, but since you brought it to light already, you said that when you knew your wife and you met your wife, you knew that I cannot let this person go. So you obviously felt I need to make this person exclusive to me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
right?
It's territorial.
It's kind of like a territorial thing. And so I think that's a turnoff for a lot of people that don't really like that commitment or don't really see marriage in their vision, right? But for us, it's I kind of want that. I kind of want that stability of knowing that this person, with through thick and thin, till death do us part, we're going to be together and ride it out.
Because again, then it goes to where y'all were talking about, should married men have friends, female friends and stuff, and it was back and forth because it just totally depends. And I think that too, I just don't want to close myself off to the world in different ways, that just to avoid hurting somebody else.
Got you.
Or putting myself in sticky situations.
For sure. So just to let you know, I'm not against you. And I think that there is no wrong answer in this conversation, because again, stating back, I'm not in the business of trying to convince you that you should get married. I'm not saying, I'm all about the perception of marriage means a lot to me. So if I want to do it, I'm going to get married. If it doesn't mean much to you, then even if you got married, it probably wouldn't work out anyways. So then just don't get married, right? It's all in your vision of what you want for your life. So if you want to say focus on you, then go ahead and do it. That's not to say that, again, we've been talking about how people change. It's not to say that you might change.
I also think like people get married because they get like FMO, like fear of missing out.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh dude, I'm not married yet. Like everybody's getting married.
Well, that's social pressure. Yeah.
Like, and for what?
Well,
like,
let's also bring up the fact that, so like, let's rewind a little bit. So like, you brought up, I made the statement of, I could never let this person go. You said, well, that's super territorial.
Mm-hmm.
Going in with the mindset that I'm looking at her as a piece of property, that is already super toxic, and I guarantee you that's not going to work out that way. When I said I can never let this person go, is because I looked at her as a beautiful human being and was like, I can't let this person go out of my life. Did we eventually get married from that and in building the relationship and getting closer? Absolutely.
Yeah, but like,
however, we built off a best friend relationship off that, and it evolved into marriage. I did not look at her and be like, I can't let her go. But the second that you said the word territorial, immediately puts at least your mindset into at least what you're saying is, I don't like the boyfriend girlfriend is because I don't like being looked at as like a territory.
Like
exactly.
Yeah.
But also know that immediately creates toxicity, and which is good that you're not in the relationship for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that the fact that I made the statement, I can't let this person go, and that it turned into marriage, and it was like, well, that's super territorial. No, because otherwise we probably would have either been broken up or divorced by now. Because I didn't look at her as a piece of territory. I looked at her as a human being and said, I need this human being to be with me for the rest of my life. I don't care what that looks like, though.
Aren't you already in that point deciding for her without even letting her decide?
Deciding
herself?
for, well,
like,
no.
Like, I need her in my life, but she hasn't even said, yeah.
So I couldn't put a gun to her face and say, hey, we need to get married.
You know what I mean? Like, you're already kind of thinking. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do understand. Yeah.
I don't.
So
elaborate for me.
So the big word for me, what you said, was mindset. So what she is perceiving is obviously completely different from what you're seeing. So I'm trying to see both sides of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is that you cherish this person as a human being, as feelings and everything like that. To her, that's still territorial. That's still like, oh, like, I gotta have you in my life. Just saying like, oh, you're a great person, I want to have you by my side, that's already territorial to her. And for you, that's companionship, that's bonding, that's growth, right? But for her, it's like, that's not for me. Like, what if I want to step away? I should be able to have that right.
But
to
also
step away.
Understand that because I don't look at her as a piece of territory, that if she turned around and said, hey, dude, you're smothering me, I don't want to be friends with you no more, I would have let it go.
Yeah.
But that's me making the commitment to being like, I don't care if we're just friends, if we're best friends, if we end up in a relationship, I have to have her in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the time to pursue her. That's not saying like I'm not giving her a choice. I'm going to like step in.
I think
okay.
That's why I wouldn't like, I don't date people who are married just like something like, oh, you're wasting your time with me, dude, because I'm not good.
That's fair. That's completely fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah,
I totally get that.
That my boyfriend from high school, like, marriage was something that he wanted, and I like had told him from the beginning, like, I don't want to get married. Like, I don't want to get married. Have kids with you. I thought about it, but like, it just felt really unhappy to me. So it just, I mean, it ended up not working out anyways too. So it was like, okay.
You're just trying to be that cool tia, that cool grandma.
Mm-hmm. That cool tia.
The cool tia with red hair.
Yeah, or whatever color.
That's cool.
She's.
What do you have to say? You look like super frustrated, but
No. In my defense, the sickness is kicking in.
oh, okay.
It's getting harder for me to breathe right now.
So what if so what if like a Gemini or Sagittarius comes around and a Gemini or what is it?
What if your
Sagittarius?
perfect star match lines up right now?
Because I read a tweet, right? You tweeted out yesterday.
Oh, because I said
I automatically love you.
Yeah, I just automatically think that you're cool like that.
So married on the spot.
No, I
She just drops her thoughts and is like, yes.
no, I was talking to a Gemini and it's just, I don't know, it just didn't work out, and also it was just like distraction, and we just have bigger.
Well, then
like,
let me ask you this: do you think it had to do with like them being a Gemini?
No, well,
Like,
they
do you
say
believe
that,
in like the? Do you believe in?
Okay, so
all of
I
that?
think the reason why people don't really believe in it, because like how you were saying, like, oh, everything's pretty relatable. And I understand that. Well, because we have like a bunch of different signs. Like you have your sun and your moon and your rising, and then like you have all the other stuff too. But they all like, so apparently like moon's based off of your like emotions and stuff, and then your rising's how people perceive you. So like how you like the mask you wear outside and stuff. And then your sun is the ruler of like all of it, like makes up all the decisions or something like that. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, I do think that like it does like in some way make them like the reasons why they are the way they are, but not to every like down to the detail. Like, oh, you're like this because you're a Cancer or because you're a Pisces, right?
I just had to ask. Yeah, Pisces. Oh my
I
god.
remember. I watched the video.
She watches
Oh
them.
my
I'm telling you, that's
God.
why I wanted to have her on the show.
Dang.
So just to be clear, I don't want you to get married if that's not truly what you want. And I don't want anybody on that's listening to the show. I don't want you to get married if that's not what you desire.
If you think for a second, like, maybe not for me, then just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Like that Medea movie where the guy's like there, he's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if that is something that you do desire, make sure that make sure that your significant other also has that in their vision very early, because you could come across someone, you know, like Lily, who doesn't have that in her vision, and then you can get caught in a pretty bad spot where you're like, I want to get married, and then
And the only way to like kind of have a better understanding
is fake that you're a Gemini.
Exactly. No, the only way that I think that you can have that other person kind of be on the same page is not only understanding who you are as a whole person, and then having that other person like having an understanding of them as a whole person, but then taking the time to grow instead of like meeting. Let's say both you are very confident in who you are, but then like 6 months later, y'all are at the chapel. No, I don't. That to me, that's and I've heard of people making that work. But I really think you guys, once you're done making the time for yourselves, make the time with each other and make the like slow process. I think what separates us into like talking about all this is that you're so focused on self-love, is that I think that we have somehow, and we're not perfect, and I have several weeks where I go by and I'm like, oh, I need to go back and self-love. I think we've learned how to self-love, but also still take care of people that we have committed to, and if not committed to, let's say my brother calls me up next week and says, hey, I need help moving across the city and it's going to take a whole week to get everything across. I can drop everything. Is it going to be draining? Absolutely. Is at the same time, let's say me and my wife are fighting that week. Is that going to be draining? Absolutely. But it sounds like a lot of your focus on and is like, man, it's just so draining. Marriage is draining. It's going to be it's a constant drain, but also what's so fulfilling is the fact that you see that other person willing to put that just as much commitment to you, and it just makes it all worth it. Because if that's the case, then like, okay, then like just simply don't take that next step and getting married. But like married, like it's going to be draining.
Yeah, they say that we're like addicted, and like by addicted, it's like so I put here like redefine what addiction is. Most of us are addicted. Anything distracting you from yourself. You can't be with yourself and your thoughts. So
I would disagree with that statement, because a lot of people become alcoholics so that way they can only be with their thoughts, or at least be isolated from their problems and only get to like.
You're not really thinking when you're drinking.
Yeah, well, I think it.
Well, from someone who was an alcoholic and used it for the depression and suicide, I can come from a standpoint.
But you're like numbing yourself.
Well, I used it so that way I can only think about myself and no one else. Because I had like family problems, I had marriage problems, I had a bunch of other crap going on, and I didn't use it to numb myself. Although there were days that I'm like, you know what, I just want to feel better. But 99% of the time, I used it so I can get away and actually think about, how do I really feel? And I know that sounds really crazy and super weird, but when I began drinking like certain types of alcohol, I was like drinking to like finally feel alone and not have to deal with the draining outside world. It didn't numb me. If anything, it enhanced my emotions within myself.
That's crazy. You shouldn't do that, because
it's a depressant.
I'm not. Yeah, it is, and it's a downer. It's a depressant. I was never a huge drinker, but I did have a drinking stage.
Drinking things.
Yeah, I had a drinking phase, and there was a time where I would literally drink. I was never into beer, but I was into Smirnoffs. I know I got made fun of a lot, but whatever. I would drink
Hey,
like
they're good, man.
I would drink 1 or 2 Smirnoffs while playing video games, and dude, like it would relax me, and like, I would forget about work, and I would forget about the problems here, and just relax.
Yeah. No. I think that when you're focused on things being too draining, your brain to the very basic standard is meant to tell you, if this is comfortable, then I'm gonna sit here. And as soon as you get uncomfortable or drained, it's gonna pull you right back into comfortable. So like if you're not ready to be pulled and be mentally challenged and to be emotionally challenged, then okay, then just don't make that step. But like
But I feel that you can be without marriage through other things.
right. But
So you
the
could still
the top
experience
the
that,
top
yeah.
right. But the topic is about marriage.
Yes.
And so like you've talked about, isn't that so draining? Isn't
Mm-hmm.
it, isn't it so draining to pour out into someone else in marriage?
Well,
yeah.
I never. Okay, but yeah. Okay.
You never what?
No, go.
Oh no, I'm just saying like you said, like it's just super like draining.
Twisting my words.
No. I'm just saying but you did say okay. Let's say you didn't say marriage, but just like in a relationship, it's just so draining. You did say it's draining to pour yourself out into someone else, and like it's important about self love. Yeah, but like at that point, it's all you're thinking about is just like, wow, it's just like I'm so tired. If that's the case, you're always going to be tired, and you're never going to be willing to pour yourself into other people. And your question was like, well, isn't it difficult to like be married or like be in that relationship and still be able to pour yourself out into other people, like your dad, like you said?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then you just are like only going to be concerned about yourself, and you're never going to take the time to help your other people because it's just so draining, right?
No, I think that I'd rather take the time to focus on like not just one person, but everybody as a whole, to who I feel are important, rather than
Instead of concentrated on just one person, is what you
Yeah.
were saying. Okay.
yeah. And then
Now we get it. Okay.
what's it called? Because also I'm not just saying like, I mean, I've been in relationships and I wasn't just like, oh well, it's just draining, I'm not gonna deal with it. Like no, I took the time, like I tried to understand them, I tried talking, like other things,
Right,
you
okay.
know. But at the end of the day, like I don't know. it just-
So
it just-
what makes you think that, and this is just a question, I'm like trying to like dig into you. What makes you think that instead of pouring out to 10 people because you're married, now I have to drop all these 10 people and only focus
Well, then
on
it goes
this
back
one?
into the topic where y'all were talking about. That's why I said,
Should-
should married men have female friends?
Right.
And then y'all were saying yes, and to some degree, but in
Right.
some cases
That-
no. So now you're closing yourself off to those people because their intentions weren't pure, but you can still have connected in different ways. But now you're not going to deal with that because you're married.
That has to
and
do with
like-
respect of the relationship.
Yeah, of
though.
course,
Yeah.
of course, though, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying
Right.
I'm not saying I personally just don't want to close myself off to those connections because my goal and like dreams are not marriage, but instead getting big on like Maad.Media. and
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she doesn't want that commitment and
Right.
that boundary set that I can't talk to these people because I'm
Right.
married.
Right. Okay.
Or because this guy wants to hit on me or something, and now I'm just gonna avoid shooting for them or something like that because I'm gonna respect my relationship.
Yeah, but you can be married. Like, I'm not gonna be ignorant to the fact that like.
But didn't you say I trust you, but I don't trust the snake?
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
So now
so
I'm
that
putting myself in the
Okay.
room with the snake.
I let you ask the question.
Okay, go.
So let me go on my
Go, go,
response.
go.
Okay. So when I said I'm not gonna trust the snake,
Mhm.
that's me saying I know for a fact that there are going to be people that be the snake in the room
Mhm.
and like come in and try to attack.
Yeah.
So like I trust you and I trust you to handle that situation, but I don't trust that snake. So like me going to be like, I want to still be able to have that friend that comes in, and even though he wants to like hit on me still be like, say no, and then not have complications later. I'm saying in a marriage, if someone comes in, I'm not ignorant to think that 10 years from now, that some guy, or 5 years from now, heck, tomorrow, that some guy is going to come into the room and them just be like just be in the room, and that person be like, hey girl, how's it going? Okay, it's happened while I was in the room actually, and I thought it was hilarious. But like this person come into the room and be like, hey, what's up? Like, can I take you out sometime? That person's a snake to me. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day,
Yeah, no, of course.
okay. But I trust my wife to be out of that situation, and I trust my wife to come and communicate that to me. That's all that statement was.
Yeah, and wouldn't you expect like for her to just not deal with it? Like,
Right,
wait,
which is why I
right?
say I trust that person, but not
exactly.
the snake.
And I don't
But am I
want
gonna say?
that,
But if
for me
but if
personally, I don't. If I don't want that expectation put on me, like because
But there's
what's more important to me is the company.
right,
then,
sure.
Yeah.
But what's the at least to me in the marriage factor, you're in your head being like, you know what? No, we're not gonna do that. But I really enjoy the company, so you know what? Let's go out anyway. That person is still gonna, or like, let's go out anyway and with a group of friends. That person is still gonna be okay. You know, that's your boundary.
Yeah.
I'm saying that particular topic is different from what we were talking about now, because now this is changing the situation. Like if you want to call out the situation of like, well, you said about the snake in the room, right? But you also talked about how you like that. If someone asked me out and I was in a marriage, like
I didn't say ask me out. I said like ask me to do a shoot for them, a photo shoot, because I'm a photographer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I thought you were insinuating
No,
like
I'm
hit
not
on
just
you
like,
or
hey, I
something
want
like
to hang
that.
out with you, but I have a
Okay.
boyfriend.
Okay. Well, then what does that have to do with the person being in the snake in the room?
Because his intentions aren't pure.
Yeah.
But I want the photography shoot.
How is his
and I'm
intentions
trying
not
to
pure if you if
because there's
it's a
guys who
shoot?
like will try to hit you up and be like, hey, let me get a photo shoot. Like they actually want a photo shoot, but they're also trying to hit on you at the same time.
Yeah.
So now, what am I gonna do if I'm in a relationship?
Well, that's me
I'm
being
just gonna-
ignorant. I don't know how photography works. I'm just saying.
Well,
like,
that's in any business though. So like, if a female is like, let's say Lily's doing something else, all right, and a guy comes up like, hey, can you do work for me? If they're alone, if they're discussing business, if they're gonna go on a trip and they're gonna do all this stuff, right? Come on, a guy
Right.
might want to
that
like.
happens in marriage too.
Okay, yes, but that's what I'm saying is like she doesn't want to have to worry about like, oh, but like my boyfriend is gonna
like
think.
putting my career basically in the back of my head and putting my relationship in front. No, I don't want that. That's where I'm coming from. And I know we're gonna disagree because you're already married and that's not something that it's not your passion, but it is mine. That's where
No, but if I and again, we're always gonna, I guess, disagree on this
Always,
statement.
yeah.
Only because like, if I'm having a business meeting, and it's a woman involved and says, hey, let's meet out for dinner and talk about plans and things like that, I'm bringing my wife with me, out of respect for her.
yeah,
But to me, that's not sacrificing my business. That's just respecting the relationship.
no, yeah.
If that person that I'm doing business with is like, why are we not alone? Then at that point, then you probably already should not be doing business with that person because they have weird intentions. If they're upset that they're not alone with you, then that's weird, right? But if you're like, hey, my wife
No,
is
that's
along
not
with
true.
me.
Nah, because if I'm interviewing a female and she brings her boyfriend,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be like, what the?
like one time one of my
Okay,
friends
no,
was trying to work with a
I'm
guy.
talking about like if and the only reason I know this is because I know that like outside of like a further business, not just like I'm not talking about a restaurant, I'm not talking about a 5-minute interview.
You're talking about like a corporation.
I'm saying like a lot of times married couples or like someone who's married and higher up in like real estate will go and have dinner with the opposite sex. I'm saying at that point, I'm bringing my wife and be like, hey, this is my wife. You know, we're just having
And
like a
if your
dinner.
wife can't make it, like if she's busy.
So then cancel the next day. At that point, though, if the person's gonna
So
be
now-
really weird
So now
about
she's
being
sacrificing.
So
alone,
now you're missing this opportunity with this person to have this meeting just because your wife couldn't make it.
and that's out of respect.
okay
And
to
you know what?
Yeah.
And you know what? And you know what? I think at the end of the day, if I had that communication with my wife and been like, hey, here's the situation, here's the layout, then okay. Then and if my wife was like, you know what, just go for it. Like, okay, then fine.
Yeah, and
I'm just saying the fact that I can't like have dinner or like go out and then it's like a weird like breaking down. My brain's not gonna go like my marriage is now at stake because I had to. No, like it shouldn't be that way. Like it should be like a relationship. You're saying like, well, no, if I can't put my business first, then that's fine. Then don't get married. I'm just saying like there's a healthy way of going about both sides, and I think that
That's
Yeah.
fair.
yeah.
The other person has to be like on the same.
Yeah.
same page.
I'm just saying like if you don't.
Yeah, but now
It's not a
the way I
sacrifice of
see
one
it-
or the other. You
but-
can still do both.
No, yeah, like, definitely. But now the way I'm seeing it is, well, okay, now I gotta talk to my partner about this. Now we have to sit down and have this hour-long discussion where I could have been working on something instead.
And she's just not willing to do that.
Yeah.
She's not willing to
And you know
compromise.
what? You know what? unfortunately, like at least from like your standpoint, that's true. You do have to have the conversation.
I wouldn't say unfortunately. I mean, we all have our different beliefs.
I mean, I'm grateful that I get to come home and be like, oh my gosh, this is what happened at work today. But like, you have a different mindset, so.
Yeah, definitely. So, did you have anything else to add on top of that?
No, I don't.
Nah. So again, I loved sitting back and watching y'all talk because I'm usually the one in the battle, right? But it was pretty cool to see two different perspectives, and I respect both of y'all's perspectives. But you all are not gonna see eye to eye.
Yeah.
So like let's.
But I totally get his side.
And I get your
side.
side, 100%.
So turning this to the audience, if y'all are split, just know that it might not be that something's wrong with you. It's not that like, oh well, my family wants me to get married, so I don't really want to get married. It's all based off of how you perceive your vision and perception of marriage. Because I don't think you should be getting married if you do not think that it's important for you anyways.
It also has to do a lot with how you grew up. Like
Yeah,
how you
100%.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, and I didn't grow up in that type of like, I mean, my parents were married, but it was a very toxic marriage. And in fact, I was like, I'm not getting married when I get older, but you know, like now that I'm been married for so long or whatever, and you're still like into the self-care, and you know what, and which is why I will continue to like congratulate you for being in that spot. Is I don't think I got to that point of like, you know what, maybe I need to focus on myself for a little bit, because my wife had to endure a lot of like me trying to work on myself, and like a lot of arguments were caused. Anyway.
But then at the same time, it's like that's a lot you put on the other person too, and then like
Exactly. But the fact that we've worked through that.
Yeah.
And even on
That's
her
good.
side,
like, I'm
and
so
so like
it's been working out.
I just think that we like, I'm gonna respect your opinion, and it's gonna just be a continuation of just like,
Yeah.
Say, damn, I thought I was gonna change your mind.
No, I never come to change minds. I just always like try to bring like a different perspective,
Yeah.
and so it was interesting that perspectives were not.
Yeah, I didn't want anybody, or like, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I think like that now. I'm just.
No. I don't think like that's changing the perspective.
Yeah.
I'm just saying opening the perspective,
Yeah.
and just like opening your mind.
one or more.
Yeah.
Interpretation.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, let us know what y'all think. Is marriage important to you? Is it in your plans in the future? Is it something you want to do? Yes, no? Leave it down in the comment section below. What'd you think of the discussion? And if you enjoyed it, again, make sure you share to help the podcast grow authentically. And without further ado, guys, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.